1. What is machine learning? Machine learning is a subset of AI that provides systems the ability to automatically learn and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed. To differentiate between supervised and unsupervised learning, supervised learning uses labeled data to train models, whereas unsupervised learning works within labeled data, finding hidden patterns or intrinsic structures in input data. 3. What is overfitting, and how can you avoid it? Overfitting occurs when a model learns both the details and noise in the training data to the extent that it negatively impacts the performance of the model on new data. It can be avoided by using techniques like cross-validation, pruning, regularization, and increasing training data. 4. Explain the concept of underfitting. Underfitting occurs when a model is too simple to learn the underlying structure of the data. Improving it involves increasing model complexity, adding more features, or reducing regularization. 5. What is a confusion matrix? A confusion matrix is a table used to evaluate the performance of a classification algorithm. It shows the true positives, true negatives, and false negatives. 6. Define precision and recall. Precision is the ratio of correctly predicted positive observations to the total predicted positives. Recall sensitivity is the ratio of correctly predicted positive events to the actual positives. 7. What is the ROC curve in AUC? The ROC curve is a graphical representation of a classifier's performance, plotting the true positive rate against the false positive rate. AUC area under the curve measures the entire two-dimensional area underneath the entire ROC curve. 8. Explain cross-validation. Cross-validation is a technique for evaluating ML models by training several ML models on subsets of the available input data and evaluating them on the complementary subset of the data. 9. What are decision trees? Decision trees are a type of supervised learning algorithm that is used for classification and regression tasks. They model decisions and their possible consequences as a tree. 10. What are ensemble methods? Ensemble methods combine multiple machine learning models to produce one optimal predictive model. Examples include random forests, boosting, and bagging. Explain the bias-variance trade-off. The bias-variance trade-off is a fundamental problem in supervised learning. Ideally, a model should have both low bias and low variance, but practically, reducing one will increase the other. 11. What is regularization and why is it useful? Regularization is a technique used to prevent overfitting by adding a penalty term to the loss function used to train the model. 12. What are support vector machines SVMs? SVMs are a set of supervised learning methods used for classification, regression, and outliers detection. They work by finding a hyperplane that best separates the classes in the feature space. 13. Explain how a neural network works. A neural network works by simulating the behavior of the human brain to recognize patterns and solve common problems in AI, ML, and deep learning. 14. What is deep learning, and how does it differ from machine learning? Deep learning is a subset of machine learning involving neural networks with many layers. It differs in the complexity of the models and the type of problems that can be solved. What is the difference between clustering and classification? Clustering is an unsupervised learning technique used to group similar items, while classification is a supervised learning technique that assigns predefined labels to items. 15. How do you handle missing or corrupted data in a dataset? You can either drop those cases, fill them in with a value like the mean or median, or infer them through other methods like prediction models. 16. What is a gradient descent? Gradient descent is an optimization algorithm used to minimize some function by iteratively moving in the direction of steepest descent, as defined by the negative of the gradient. 17. Explain the concept of feature engineering. Feature engineering is the process of using domain knowledge to extract features from raw data that make machine learning algorithms work. 18. What are hyperparameters, and how are they different from model parameters? Hyperparameters are the configuration settings used to tune how the model is trained. Model parameters are learned attributes that define how to use input data to predict output. 19. What is a perceptron? A perceptron is a simple type of artificial neural network and the basic unit of a neural network. It's a model of a single neuron that can be used for binary classification problems. 20. Explain the concept of a cost function. A cost function, or loss function, is a measure of how good a prediction model does in terms of being able to predict the expected outcome. It quantifies the error between predicted values and expected values and presents it in the form of a single real number. 21. What is the difference between generative and discriminative models? Generative models learn the joint probability distribution Px, Yn can generate new data instances. Discriminative models learn the conditional probability Pyx and are used for classification. 20 to what are some common feature selection methods? Common methods include filter methods like information gain, wrapper methods like forward selection, and embedded methods like lasso. 23. Explain the concept of dimensionality reduction and its benefits. Dimensionality reduction reduces the number of random variables to consider. Benefits include reduced computational cost and noise, as well as improved performance. Methods include PCA principal component analysis and TSNE. 20. For what is a random forest and how does it work? A random forest is an ensemble learning method. It works by constructing multiple decision trees during training and outputting the class that is the mode of the class's classification or mean prediction regression of the individual trees. 25. Explain the concept of bagging. Bagging, or bootstrap aggregating, is a method used to reduce the variance of a prediction model by combining the results of multiple models trained on different subsets of the same dataset. 26. What is the k-nearest neighbors algorithm? KNN is a simple, non-parametric, lazy learning algorithm that stores all available cases and classifies new cases by a majority vote of its k-neighbors. How do you handle an imbalanced dataset? Techniques include resampling the dataset, using different thresholds, collecting more data, and using performance metrics like AUC-ROC. 27. What is the difference between type 1 and type 2 errors? Type I error is a false positive, whereas type 2 error is a false negative. 28. What are the limitations of a decision tree? They are prone to overfitting, can become unstable with small variations in data, and are biased with imbalanced datasets. 29. What is the purpose of the activation function in a neural network? Activation functions introduce nonlinear properties to the network, which allows the model to learn more complex representations. 30. What are the differences between batch gradient descent and stochastic gradient descent? Batch gradient descent calculates the error for each example in the training dataset, but only updates the model after all training examples have been evaluated. Stochastic gradient descent updates the model after each example. 31. What is early stopping in machine learning? Early stopping is a form of regularization used to avoid overfitting. Training is stopped as soon as the performance on a validation set starts to degrade. 32. Explain the concept of pruning in decision tree learning. Pruning reduces the size of decision trees by removing sections of the tree that provide little power to classify instances, helping to reduce overfitting. 33. What is a convolutional neural network? CNN? CNNs are deep learning algorithms particularly effective for image recognition and processing, as they can automatically and adaptively learn spatial hierarchies of features. 34. What are autoencoders? Autoencoders are a type of neural network used to learn efficient codings of unlabeled data, typically for the purpose of dimensionality reduction. 35. Explain the vanishing gradient problem. The vanishing gradient problem occurs in training deep neural networks, where gradients can become very small, effectively preventing the weights from changing their value and stopping the network from further training. 36. What is transfer learning? Transfer learning is a machine learning technique where a model developed for a task is reused as the starting point for a model on a second task. It is especially popular in deep learning. 37. What is data normalization and why do we need it? Data normalization is a preprocessing step to standardize the range of independent variables or features of data. It's important because it brings all the variables to a similar scale, aiding in faster and more accurate convergence of algorithms. 38. What is the difference between L1 and L2 regularization? L1 regularization lasso adds an absolute value of magnitude penalty to the loss function, leading to feature selection. L2 regularization ridge adds a squared magnitude penalty, which leads to smaller and more distributed feature weights but doesn't do feature selection. 39. How is a decision tree pruned? Pruning a decision tree involves cutting back the branches of the tree. This can be done by setting a maximum depth, minimum samples per leaf, or a complexity threshold. 40. What are the advantages of a random forest over a decision tree? Random forests reduce the risk of overfitting by averaging multiple trees, provide a more reliable assessment of feature importance, and are more accurate than individual decision trees. 41. Explain the term curse of dimensionality. The curse of dimensionality refers to various phenomena that rise when analyzing and organizing data in high-dimensional spaces that do not occur in low-dimensional settings. 42. What is logistic regression? Logistic regression is a statistical method for predicting binary classes. It uses a logistic function to model a binary-dependent variable. 43. Explain what an F1 score is. The F1 score is the harmonic mean of precision and recall and is used as a measure of a test's accuracy. It considers both false positives and false negatives. 44. What is a time series analysis? Time series analysis involves analyzing time-ordered sequence data to extract meaningful statistics and other characteristics. It's often used in forecasting and financial analysis. 45. Explain how a ROC curve is plotted. A ROC curve is plotted with true positive rate TPR against the false positive rate FPR, where TPR is on the y-axis and FPR is on the x-axis. 46. What are the assumptions made in a linear regression model? The main assumptions are linearity, independence, homoscedasticity, and normal distribution of errors. 47. What is multicollinearity and how you can overcome it? Multicollinearity occurs when independent variables in a regression model are correlated. This can be addressed by removing highly correlated predictors. Using principal component analysis (PCA) or regularization methods like ridge or lasso. 48. What is the difference between clustering and classification? Clustering is an unsupervised learning method used to group similar data points, whereas classification is a supervised learning method used to assign predefined labels to data points. 49. What is a Boltzmann machine? A Boltzmann machine is a type of stochastic recurrent neural network that can learn internal representations and can be used for feature discovery. Explain the concept of reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is a type of machine learning where an agent learns to behave in an environment by performing actions and seeing the results, focusing on long-term rewards. 50. What is a generative adversarial network GAN? GANs consist of two networks, a generator and a discriminator, which are trained simultaneously. The generator creates samples to fool the discriminator, and the discriminator tries to distinguish between real and fake samples. 51. What are LSTM networks, and where are they used? Long short-term memory LSTM networks are a type of recurrent neural network and used in deep learning because they are capable of learning order dependence in sequence prediction problems. 52. How do you ensure that your model is not overfitting? Techniques include cross-validation, training with more data, simplifying the model, early stopping, and regularization. 53. What is feature scaling and why is it important? Feature scaling is a method used to normalize the range of independent variables or features of data. It's important because it ensures that each feature contributes proportionally to the final predictee. 54. What is the purpose of using an ensemble method in machine learning? Ensemble methods combine multiple machine learning models to improve robustness, accuracy, and performance over individual models. 55. What is model validation in machine learning? Model validation involves evaluating a trained model on a separate dataset not used in training to check its performance in generalization to new data. 56. Explain the terms precision and recall in the context of a classification problem. Precision measures how many of the items identified as positive are actually positive, while recall measures how many of the actual positive items were identified correctly. 57. What is a neuron in a neural network? A neuron is a fundamental unit in a neural network, mimicking the function of a biological neuron. It receives inputs, processes them, applies an activation function, and passes the output to the next layer. 58. Explain dropout in neural networks. Dropout is a regularization technique where randomly selected neurons are ignored during training, reducing overfitting by preventing complex co-adaptations on training data. 59. What is the difference between a validation set and a test set? A validation set is used for parameter selection and to avoid overfitting during training, while a test set is used to evaluate the performance of the model after the training process is complete. 60. What are hyperparameters in machine learning? Hyperparameters are parameters whose values are set before starting the training process. They define higher-level structural settings for algorithms, like the learning rate or number of hidden layers in neural networks.